Hello and welcome everybody to the latest edition of the Buy Round Interview Show. Joined today by a man who I have the pleasure to call my coach, someone who reinvigorated my career back in 2018, Paul McGregor.
James? Gemma? Jimmy?
How are we going, Paul? Great to see. Your dress sense doesn't match your age still.
All right, here we go.
Dressing like a much younger gentleman.
Thanks, mate. You just got out of bed, eh?
Well, yeah, I'm
Put
not
a pair
one,
of joggers on?
I'm not one to give people fashion advice, but
Correct.
You have the dress sense of a younger person.
Well, that's probably my wife and my daughter. Not me.
Not you.
Not
But you're looking.
I'll just wear what I'm told, mate.
You one of those.
Yeah.
No, mate, you're looking fantastic. What's going on in the life of Mary McGregor at the moment?
Right at the moment, I'm doing some renos for my son on his house. So keep myself busy that way.
Are you like on the tools kind of thing, or are you
What are you
delegating?
saying?
No, I'm just trying to figure it out. Are you the delegator?
No, I'm actually
the
the worker, mate. Yeah. He's in Europe at the moment, so I'm doing some work on it while he's gone.
That's love.
Well, yeah, it is. It's time too, mate. When both of them combined, I think. But yeah, look, I've known the building game for a long time, so this is just something doing it for from while he's away, and to come back to a little bit newer home because it's not a 50s home, so we've got to do a little bit of work, maintenance wise and stuff. So he knows what's going on, but he'll be quite surprised when he gets back.
Yeah, nice. So the old, Dad, I'm just going to duck off to Europe with you.
Yeah,
Probably a good time to.
Smart, yeah. He knows it'll get done. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, good on him. But there's a desire there to get back in the box, right?
Yeah, I'd still around rugby league. Like it's been my whole life. 29, 30 years of my life in and around rugby league as a player, as an assistant, as a staff member, as a coach. So, for me, I've crossed every path along that. There's been a reserve grade coach, assistant coach, strength and conditioning, and then a skills coach and obviously first grade coach. I was with Para last year, which was really nice. Brad and his team there and the players were outstanding. Got through the GF, which was good. We couldn't get it done on the day. Penrith's pretty hot, and we sort of missed the kick. However, been involved in the Origin for the last few years, which is good as Freddie's assistant. Doing a little bit of work with the pathways in camps and stuff. So keep me brain around rugby league, and it's it's certainly a passion of mine, and it's been a purpose. Biggest thing in life is to have a purpose, and it's certainly that's why I want to get back involved, because it gives me a real desire to of unfinished business.
Okay, I get it, but for our listeners and our viewers, like, I guess the question is why? It's incredibly stressful. It's unstable. You will be scrutinised. You'll be used. You'll be part of the game within the game. You'll have your back stabbed. Why do you want to get back into that world?
Yeah, it's a fair,
like
a lot of that.
I ask every coach that, like every single coach,
Yeah.
because I think there's something interesting about a person that's attracted to that, and because knowing what you already know, what you've already been through at the Dragons, you like.
I think it's a privilege to coach at that elite level, and I understand the conversation around it because it's 24/7. Radio, TV, shows, in the media all the time, but. You can't control any of that, so you really can only control what you can at the time. And my obviously got a passion for the sport. I know the game. I've been involved with it, nearly 2/3 of my life at an elite level. So for me, it's just a part of the way I do things every day. So I don't really concern myself what others think. That's number one. Otherwise, you would be in that, in a dark place at times. But I certainly, listen to people that have got solid advice, and I've got mentors and things that are sort of my pillars instead of what happens outside the environment I'm controlling. So, all that, the sideshow or the circus, as we call it, doesn't really. It's needed. It's really needed for the sport to have the growth that it does have. However, as an important part of who you're involved in, you don't let that get to you and change your decisions. You stay on process.
It will still come with an incredible amount of stress, though.
Yeah, I think everyone handles that differently.
Yeah,
and
I'd argue it's probably top 1 or 2% of most stressful pressure jobs, and everyone, like, people might walk around and go, "Wow, what about doctors?" Or, "Oh, what about, you don't understand real, like, financial stress and all that sort of stuff." But in terms of job or vocation, I think professional coaching would come with the most amount of stress.
Yeah, I suppose every position that is in a professional way has got more stress than anything else. Stress is handled by everyone totally differently, and all I can do is it probably hurts my family a little bit more and close friends, because they really believe sometimes what they're hearing. But personally, I look at it in a completely different way. I look at it. I'm going to work in a position that I love and help people out that will be remembered for their life. So, I look at players that start out as juniors, they end up representing their country. I look at players that have their first child, buy their first home, and then hold friendship forever. So I look at it completely a little bit different than, obviously you want to win, and that's the most important thing to everyone, is about winning. But you also look at things that have a real staying effect and memories that live on forever. So I understand the pressure, but again, I think that's a privilege because you've made it to that level. And certainly along the way, the apprenticeships and the experience gives you better instincts to handle that pressure. And that's why I think I want it. Well, not think, I know what I want to do. Why I want to do it again is purely because I think the second time around you'll be better at it from the experiences and you've had in the past.
Yeah. Is there a possibility that you would take what some might seem as a step back in order to take a step forward? So I'm thinking perhaps take over one of the teams in the Super League, or go into that assistance role again, or is it just I want to be a head coach?
Oh, I think
head coach here in the NRL.
Yeah, I definitely want to be a head coach in the NRL, and I understand sometimes you have to take a step back. And I really enjoyed my time at Parramatta last year, going through the GF, and I was only a consultant to Brad and doing a little bit of work on obviously the oppositions and systems in place and stuff. But I learned a little bit there, so which was great. Still involved, as I said before, with the Origin, which is the elite of the elite. Keeping in contact with the best players in the game, which is good. Going to Super League, well, that's a different conversation. I think if I'm 151 game NRL coach, coach reserve grade for a few years, and done a 3-year apprenticeship in the Illawarra competition before that. So to go to Super League, I think you've got to go over there and win one to get acknowledgement of improvement of what you were before. So them jobs don't come up very often. So to be only probably 4 teams that you could select from. And then it's this sort of stage of it at 50, turn of 56, whether really that's the most beneficial thing for yourself and your family. Not thinking just on myself. An assistant role, look, it'd have to be on my terms, so to speak, and that's very hard to do because there's a lot of teams that I'd have to move away from home for, and I'm not really keen to do that too much at the minute, unless I get obviously the top job. Yeah,
when you say home, you mean mansion? But anyway,
what I just built that actually,
mate. For those listeners, you live in a smick house, right?
Thanks, mate.
It's beautiful. What's it like playing the waiting game?
Look, I've been able to fill the time up comfortably. Last year with the building a new home, travelling to Parramatta, which is a journey from where it is, and doing that a couple of days a week in game day, and then the Origin and a bit of the pathways, the state stuff. So look, last year got filled really easily. This year's been a little bit more challenging with more time on my hands. However, doing things for the daughter and things for the son around the home, and then obviously with the Origin and a little bit of pathways, it's still filling in time without completing my day. So I had a back operation which took a fair bit of time up this year. So I haven't found myself sitting on the lounge and watching TV. I've always filled that time up with doing something, whether it be recovering from surgery, going to physios, or working in that space that I just mentioned. So the time hasn't completely been a waste, but I will need to do something shortly, I think, because there's only so many jobs you can do, and hopefully no more operations.
Yeah. So do you have a time frame on this in terms of like, okay, I need to be a NRL head coach by the end of this year, next year, and if so, what is that? Yeah,
I think so. I think being out of the game now, like the head coach for 3.5 years, although I've been involved in the game with club and state, I think it's in the next 12 months. So it's probably the end of next year. And if that time goes by, well, then I've got to look at other career choices. But my passion and purpose is obviously around giving that one more opportunity, having that one more go at it, because I've certainly got some unfinished business that I want to, make sure that it ends better than it did last time. The career it always has its ebbs and flows, and the hill at the top and the bottom are far apart. But, I really enjoyed what I'd done. I'm very grateful for the opportunity I had at the Dragons, and being a longer serving coach there was something that's great memories to look back on.
Yeah, most definitely. Just going back to that before around the coaching waiting, are you watching 8 games of football a weekend?
Yeah, I've got an analyzer at home.
Oh,
yeah. So absolutely. Yeah. I watch, and that takes a fair bit of time up as well. I'm probably watching more of the opposition. Obviously, when you're a coach, you mainly focus on what you need to improve, and you get other coaches in your system to worry about the opposition. So I'm watching a lot of football on the opposition, which I never done too much as a head coach. I obviously always looked through the vision. I think, James, what time I got to work and what time I left, and how much footy I took in.
Do you enjoy watching it?
I love it. Yeah.
Like even now, like you enjoy a game of football.
I enjoy a game of footy. Yeah.
But you watch it very differently than what most people would. Or so you would watch it differently to how the average punter would watch it, right?
Yeah, I watch it. If I watch it with company and with a beer.
Oh, it's bad watching a game with company. I can't do it.
Well, you're not watching
horrible.
as a coach. You're watching it as a sporter, and mainly as a fan of the game. So, but when you watch it by yourself, you totally watch it as a coach. And then, so if I watch I've got the room set up at home where I've got a nice size TV that I do all the vision on. I watch as a coach, and I take down notes, and I still cut up vision. But if I'm 6 schooners deep at a pub, well, I'm certainly not watching in them eyes,
But when you watch it in company, do people ask you questions
all the time?
Oh, God.
Yeah, well, they're only trying to learn the game or know a little bit more, and sometimes it can get frustrating, right? Yeah.
What happened there?
Yeah. Some just throw it back at them, just say, well, I'm not sure. What do you think?
Yeah. Well, I've been presented with the same information as you. Yeah.
Well, sometimes we can't both work it out, right? So
it is. it is hard for me. Like I've walked out of many a game and just out of the living room while the game's on because I just can't face like my mum or dad being there or my wife. It's like,
oh wow, hard.
I would happily watch a game and not say a word. Like that's the I find it hard to detach and go into that mode of like, oh, I'm the casual fan. Like I'm watching it, looking for things. And so if anyone's like, just being friendly and just having general conversation, I'm like,
So your weekend's pretty quiet then.
I'm learning how to do that.
Okay.
Learning how to do that, yeah. But yeah. Kids, that's fine. You can ask because I get you.
Yeah.
I get it that you
They're
don't
allowed
get
to
it.
interrupt.
Yeah. But sometimes there's some adults out there that I'm just like, oh, no.
So they don't come to your house Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday.
Not at all.
Yeah, I think there's, like my time's Monday, Tuesday of watching games through the weekend, and the weekend's really for what I haven't had for the last so many years of, because I've been busy. I've been working. So I look at the weekends now as a real grateful that I've got them. So I use them in and around the family or friends or staying in Sydney for the weekend or doing a bit of travel. Getting down to the place down in Barara, which I couldn't do.
Yeah.
So Monday, Tuesday is more my let's have a look at how the weekend went,
Yeah, I think for me, watching a game with my mum and dad, it surprises me that Fox or Channel 9 I haven't taken them on because they've got some great insight to what's going on in the game and some great opinions that I just love to hear.
There's a lot of people out there the same, mate.
Love
don't
to
worry.
hear. Oh no, mum and dad, you're wasted. The Blues, you mentioned, you're a key part of the squad and the camp this season. Where did it go wrong for New South Wales?
Oh, look, looking back, I really think, game one was a huge importance, which it always is in every series, but the control we had in that game and how we, lost that control late in the game. So I just feel that, if you look at dominance in field possession, time we had in good ball, we should have probably scored another try. However, to Queensland's credit, their defence was outstanding, and the stops they made on the try line were good. And we made some probably errors, or we did make some errors in defence that we would make again in cover. And then to lead the game, and to get a repeat set, I think it was 11 minutes or 10.5 minutes to go, and then they lose a player in the bin. And how then they scored that try was really, for me, involved was a little bit hard to get a grip on because, Val got tackled on a sideline and they two-pass shifted, Cam Munster, who's the lead of elite, skips sideways and gets past a couple and past the ball and they're off down the sideline. Like they shouldn't have even got that far. With that level of players involved.
Do you think Nico Hines was unfairly blamed for that?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so do I.
Yeah, for sure. I think it's a team sport, so no one player should or any time get the blame. You've got to look at how far he got to before it got to Nico as well. So it's a team environment where. Having the possession we had, field position, we should have won the game, and we didn't. To Queensland's credit, their fight, they're never gone. They're always fighting to the end. They won the game. Game two, we had a few distractions coming into game two. We lost a few players from without going through, but Nathan and Appy, so our spine changed a fair bit. And then obviously we lost Tommy in the first couple of minutes of the game. So we're up against it.
And it's incredibly difficult
to
go up to. Look, it is. We know it is. History has shown that it's.
I think always as a player and a staff member and a coach, you expect to win. Doesn't matter where you're playing at, who you're playing against. you prepare to win and expect to win on game day. You know, when you look back and you look at the game, they were very good. We weren't good enough. They dominated the game. They got a few decisions to go their way early. As I said, we lost time, but they, for me, that was the game that that was their best footy. You know, like they dominated the game from start to finish. The scoreline probably indicated how the game went. Game 3 was probably exactly the same our way. So Origin's always the best and the worst is not far apart. The closeness of the scoreboard's never far apart. But I think it just goes back to moments, and that game 1 moment that we didn't handle, and Queensland did, was a bearing on how the outcome of the game, the series was. So disappointment, mate, because there's a lot goes into it through the players and staff, and you know, we had a lot of distractions along the way, which probably didn't help, but you can't use them as an excuse because it's the next man up mentality, and it's the best football played in Australia, I think. You know, and sometimes you could say in the world in that 8 weeks period. So there's a lot of good players out there playing for both states.
In the sort of the debrief or the staff review, what were some of the learnings from that series, and was there anything that you identified that you think, well, we should have done that differently, and that's what we will do should we get the chance to go again?
Yeah, well, there's definitely a lot of things that you look back at and you think you can do better, whether it may be around your week of training, your selection of team, the availability of players at the time, and who's best suits the guys that you were going to pick that, you know, aren't available. You know, you go back to your scheduling of your programs. So the debrief's pretty thick. You know, it comes back to game plans and whether the players that were chosen stuck to the game plans in the right situations, in the pressure situations. So yeah, there's a lot goes into the review of any game or any series, and I'm sure that'll obviously come out more in the future. I think they've got a board review on the 25th of this month.
Is it possible that it's perhaps overanalyzed and it's just as simple as we take 2 chances in game 1, we don't make that defensive error, and we're not having this conversation?
Yeah. Sometimes you complicate something that's very
you know,
simple.
Like you say, you're talking about overview of schedule. It's like it's simple, execution under pressure, and make the right decision in the moment.
Yeah,
we do overanalyze sport, and I've seen it before where, you know, they've got 2 newspaper articles wrote for Thursday morning. You know, experience pays off. Versus, oh no, experience was the wrong thing to do. We are a results-driven industry.
Yeah.
But sometimes the results mask or don't reflect the correct processes. Like sometimes you play a game, and you know there are so many variables within a game that you can and can't control, and you do all the best practice. And I was involved in one of these games. The World Cup final in 2017, England v Australia, 6-0. There's nothing more we could have done.
Remember that, yeah.
Nothing more we could have done. We don't review that and go, oh, if we'd have, you know, it'd be nice to not drop a few balls in key moments. But look back and go, well, we ran out of time today. Like 2 high-quality teams like Queensland and New South Wales are. You go, well, before the ball was kicked to start the series, there was going to be a winner of the series and there's going to be a loser of the series. Now, one team is going to have a huge celebration and they'll have a review, but it'll be, that was all great, all good, tick, tick, tick. And then the team that loses, it's like, whoa.
Yeah.
Where, you know, like, is that something that the board would accept? But hey, we got the processes right. We just didn't execute on the day.
Yeah, I think as a board, you want to have a really good overview of what the schedule looked like, what the training looked like, selections of teams, and the performance. So sometimes do we really go into that deep, and does it actually undo some of the really good stuff that you've done along the way because the result wasn't what you wanted? Definitely at that level, and it's been proven year after year, there's not much between winning and losing. There's a goal in it. There's a moment and there's a try in it.
It's a decision to chase back, or to a pass goes on the money versus a pass not going on the money, a kick that bobbles, the bounce of a ball.
Yeah.
Who knows?
But winning and losing is what it's about, right? So when you lose, obviously the scrutiny is a lot more than when you win. And Brad's tasted that. His first couple of years he won comfortably by good scorelines. And the last couple of years he's lost on close scorelines. So the game 2 was a bit of a blowout this year, but most of the games are close. So yeah, that'll be a conversation again once the board really do see what is presented. Do they find that, you know what, there's not much in it? We've got to improve in a couple of these areas and just run with what it is. Because I feel like, personally can sit here and not because Brad's my good friend of mine, mate, he's the best guy for our state as the head coach. He knows there's 2 people that know Origin to me more than anyone else, and that's Laurie Daly and Brad Fittler. I was lucky enough and fortunate enough to play, and I'm talking New South Wales, I'm not talking Queensland, to play with both them guys. Because Queensland obviously have got, their way, they won 8 in a row or 9 in a row there at some stage. But I think them 2 guys really, played in the right spirit and the competitiveness and the knowledge of what Origin's about. They should, for me, I think Freddie should get another opportunity.
Yeah, so you think the plan would be to have Freddie there 2024, and you'd look to be a part
Well,
of
I'm
that
not sure about the staff. That'd be up, obviously, to review whether they need change, whether it be myself or others on the staff. When you're not winning and you're losing, that could be enough to kickstart change in and around Brad. And I'll accept anything that comes that way. That's the position you're in. But I'm quite comfortable sitting here talking to you and whoever listens, is that I've done everything that I was asked to do, and in a way that was professional. I've got a good relationship with the players. But if they feel change is needed.
Yeah, fair enough. Back to that, we talk about the players. We forget sometimes, like when I was a kid growing up and you'd see the coaches on the telly, you forget that they once were players. So a lot of our listeners and viewers wouldn't know that you actually played. And it's a really interesting story because you didn't make your first grade debut until the age of 23. So some might say a late bloomer. Now, usually, stereotypically, those that get the debut later in their years, they're just, with all due respect, more the average style of first grader. But debut at 23, less than a year, you're playing representative football. Can you tell us a little bit about why it took you so long to break in to the first team? What was the reason behind that?
I think, it's a pretty good conversation, actually. I honestly didn't think I was good enough when I was younger, and I got offered a contract 3 years prior to when I took my contract. So I got offered X amount of money, which was here, 3 years prior. Then they offered me 2 years prior. Then they offered me that, and I ended up taking the bottom dollar pretty well to come in and give it an opportunity, give it a shot. So it wasn't through their lack of...
So the Dragons were pushing for you?
Oh, yeah. No, Illawarra.
Illawarra, yeah. They were pushing for you.
Big time. For 3 years in a row. And
why are you knocking it back?
Well, I was comfortable. I was playing first grade out there at Dapto, and it was a very good competition with a lot of ex-Sydney players coming back and playing the competition. I was working. I was on shift work at the Steelworks at the time. So I was very comfortable in earning pretty decent money and having a bit of a weekend of partying as a young bloke. So I didn't really need to, take that next chance to prove to anyone. But then as I got older and the offer started to deteriorate less and less, and the push from my father. My father was a really good bush football player. He played a lot of captain coach in the bush and played bush footy. And he said, mate, you're never going to know how good you are until you actually go and test it. So his push and mate's push back then sort of gave me the, I suppose enough drive to go in and test myself. There was a story before that, which was a year and a half prior to me going in. They stopped me from playing local footy unless I went and played for them.
Why?
Well, because it was a feeder club. So the Illawarra local league was a feeder club to the Steelers. And I thought, they can't. But they did.
And they stopped you playing?
They stopped me playing locally unless I went in and played a game. So I went in and played a game in reserve grade, scored 2 tries and went home before first grade kicked off. So it's a little bit of a... Anyway, so that was a bit of a story. But
it's hard to imagine. Like, it's really hard to fathom that, especially now.
Like, so we used to, back then at early 90s, they used to bring people through that could play local footy, and they played first grade within a week or two, But going back to coming in, so I had a pre-season, and I wasn't much of a mate. I never went to a gym till I was 22. So the first gym I actually went in and I've obviously lifted a weight, but I've never actually been into a gymnasium and worked out Monday to Friday until I went in at the age of 22. And I was that far behind, mate. They needed a set of binoculars to see where I got to. Anyway, Graham Murray, I remember this. Graham Murray was my coach, and I was falling behind on a drill, and he said, mate, if you ever do that fucking again, mate, you're out. I said, well, that's easy for me. I'll just go, Anyway, he had a good, solid conversation with me after training, and he said, look, I don't care how far you get below, as long as you give everything you got, And so I said, righto. So I dedicated myself. I didn't have a beer for 8 months. Really put my time and effort into what I needed to do, which was try and catch these guys that are that far ahead before I actually play a game. So I played a game, reserve grade in a trial against Para, and then played one game of reserve grade, which is the first game of the year, against Penrith. Back then you could sit on the reserve grade bench, the reserves bench to play first grade. And it was against Penrith, who just won the GF the year before, or got beaten in the GF the year before. And one of the centres got injured. So I got an opportunity to go out there and play. Played the last 15, 20 minutes of that game, got selected in first grade the year after, and that was pretty well my career kicked off. Got in, they had city country, and if you weren't good enough to play for country, you made the city side that played country, which is the bush players. And I got selected in that, in the city side, and then from there I obviously played Origin within that 12-month period, so it was a pretty quick rise. Yeah.
That's an incredible rise. It really is a sort of pinch yourself moment, and you go on playing your career there at the Steelers, and you're involved in obviously playing at a time with the Super League war. Now, I had a number of guests on that have played through that era. What was your take on it? We'll get to the merger, but you as a player when all that was happening.
It was pretty. It was pretty live, to be honest. It was there's a lot happening in quick amount of time. I remember I was fortunate enough to come back from the Kangaroo Tour the year before, or the World Cup Tour. So I was playing at that level where I was offered a contract from both sides, and I never really wanted to leave Wollongong. It took them 3 years to get me from Dapto to Wollongong, so I was never going to go to Wollongong anywhere else. So, look, I was comfortable staying there. But Graham Murray signed with Super League, who was my coach. And he said, look, you need to talk to him. Before that, had already been up the mountains.
Did he go to the Cowboys?
No, he went to the Mariners first.
Oh,
the Hunter Mariners.
Mariners, yeah.
So I had already been called by the ARL to go and have a chat with them. So I went up and I signed a contract, which is a loyalty check and a contract to stay with ARL.
Are we talking like a significant increase?
Decent. It was decent. So as I'm driving back down the mountain, Graham, called and said, "Look, you need to just have a conversation with the Super League." And I said, "Okay." And then I didn't have a manager at that time, so I rang Clydie and he got me on the George Mimas, Bradley Clyde, who got me on the George Mimas. So I went in and had a chat with a few powers to be in Wollongong, and it was at the Wollongong bars because the team went there pretty well to have conversation. And then they walked in and said, "Look, don't worry about what you've just signed. We can look after that. We can get you out of that legally. We're going to offer you X, Y, Z." And I went, "Well, I need a manager now." So I got onto George and obviously went back to the ARL, and they changed their first offer to what more than above that they needed to match the second one. And then I stayed ARL, stayed in Wollongong. That's how that sort of story went. But there was it really divided our team because our coach was gone, and they dismissed him pretty well within the coming weeks. So we didn't finish the year. So we had a new coach come in, which is Alan Fitzgibbon, who was a Dapto boy, which is Craig's father. And I got on famously with because I was from the junior club that he coached before me, before I played there. So knew him well. And that was fine. So the coach obviously going was hard, but the new coach come in was easy. But the players, there was a half a dozen or more of the players that signed with Super League. So by year end, they'd left. And the chemistry, as you know, if you lose 6 pretty good players, it's pretty hard to build straight away and so quickly to be successful because we were quite a good side back then. We played finals, 92. We always was in the top 6, 7 sides in the competition up until when Graham left.
What was the feeling towards those players that left like?
For me, it was not. They're still great friends now. A couple of guys, I like Johnny Cross, who, for argument's sake, left. He trains every day at my place. So back then, it was a little bit of.
Did you understand why? Or was it like, I get it, or was it like, hang on, I thought we were.
Yeah, I think back then it was more for what they could get out of their careers with either party, and whatever was going to be best for them was okay with us. Would I have liked the team to stay together? Yes, but they chose their path and they enjoyed their path. It was a little bit different, and in a few years' time, some of us got back together anyway and played together. So it didn't last too long, but they were mates I grew up with. Some of the guys that I grew up with, Neil Pinchinelli, for example, played a lot of junior footy against Neil, and he went Super League as well. So it was just, do what you need to do, and I'll do what I need to do, and we'll go from there. Could have been like Newcastle, and we drove the bus into the city, and like Chief did, and changed things forever. I would like to see that because, it worked out well for Newcastle in the end. They won a competition not long after that. But, we weren't to do that. We didn't get offered to do that. So, it was totally different. We had to really, butter our own bread.
Yeah, bit of that every man for himself.
Yeah, a little bit, yeah.
Approach. So there was probably a little bit more of an understanding amongst the playing group.
Yeah.
You're skipper at the time, and then the Super League war breaks out and peace is made. Mm-hmm. There's a merger on the cards. Can you run us through what it was like as the Steelers captain to think like, well, we're not going to be our own, we're not going to be an independent, not stakeholder, but we're not going to be standing alone here. Was there ever a talk of just Illawarra entering the competition themselves, or it was always we need a merger?
Oh, we weren't financial enough to answer that ourselves. And obviously they were looking for mergers because of the amount of teams that were around Sydney. So it was a really easy fit for the merger for the two clubs because, you know, they're close. They're 45 to an hour apart, depending on traffic. We used to be before the Steelers were as a team, we used to feed a lot of players into the St. George system. So, and I was a St. George supporter as a kid, so it was pretty easy for me to do that. The problem was back then, I had a lot of friends that I played a lot of rugby league with and grew up playing junior footy with that didn't make the cut. So it was a lot more difficult.
Because you've got two squads that have got to fit into one, right?
Correct. And you got
I imagine there was a lot of professional players that found themselves redundant.
Well, you got a $4.5 million salary for each that people know about for each club, and then that had to go in. That went to $9 million, obviously. So we had a side worth close enough to $9 million. But there was a lot of players from that were off contract that didn't get on a new contract, or didn't get offered a new contract, so they had to go. So what happened with them was we're talking about Dean Callaway, David Walsh, who were 100-plus games for the Steelers that I played beside, grew up with, played local footy with, that were no longer wanted. So that was difficult. No, them boys had to go overseas or find another club because they had selected players that were either on contract, and that was the only way, or offered players a payout to leave, because they had to bring that down from 9 to 4.5 within, I think, 18 months or 2 years, So that was difficult. The merger was, was
it exciting?
It was, because you're joining two good teams.
Yeah, so you saw this.
I saw this as an opportunity to win a GF.
Yeah.
Not being selfish, but I thought, I was still playing elite level. I was playing Origin the year before. So I thought this is a great opportunity for a lot of players that I played with at rep footy, that we could do something special. So as an older statesman, which I was getting, to the end of my career, not the start, selfishly I was thinking, I can win a championship here. So that was my drive. It was certainly harder for others when, even in my position as captain for Illawarra, Mark Coyne was captain for St. George. We both played right centre. So you got, so that makes it a little bit difficult as well. You got two players that are captains of their club that are both coming towards their end of their careers that were, in the same position. So that was a challenge in itself, for me as an individual to win that position as well. Let's go.
So the merger gets announced. Before day one of training, was there a catch up, a meet up, a get to know each other session? I'm assuming that at the Steelers, everybody's living down the gong. And then the St. George lads would be living in Sydney, right? So it's about an hour away. Where are we going to train? Was it all down in the gong like it is now, or split? And then what's that first coming together? Two groups coming together like?
Yeah, it was certainly different. Logistically, it still has its challenges, I think. Although it's only 50 minutes away, it's still, if you're having a drink, it's a long way to get home, So it's still very hard for, you're not in one town. You're in two towns. And anything you do together can be challenged from the distance you live apart.
Well, it's not just that as well. So it's not like all the Illawarra players would have lived in Wollongong. Some of them would have been South Coast boys, right?
Yeah.
So that's the situation now. So you've got lads down as far
Gerringong.
as Gerringong.
Yep.
So
it's another 40 minutes away. And it's like Rob Wishard for the first year, he had to travel from Gerringong to Cogra. So we split training. So it'd be
Gerringong to Cogra's
it's a travel.
A trek.
Yeah. So we had a few meetings before going back to what you asked before.
When you say
they were pub meetings, they weren't really.
Yeah. How was the atmosphere in amongst those first pub meetings? Is it just football lads being football lads, or is it a bit like you and Coyne are like, well, what are you thinking about playing on the left?
Yeah, I was. there was.
I've always thought you'd make a good back rower, Mary.
There was always sort of conversation around, how it would look, but it was too early to worry about. It was more of a get together and a gathering, have a few beers, and get to find out, who can do what.
But again, I know. When the beers get flowing, like teammates fighting amongst themselves.
The truth comes out, right?
Well, the truth comes out. Lads fight amongst themselves anyway. But then when you've got this, like you'd have been playing against each other not that long ago. And that, bit of Dutch courage. Was there any of that happening, or was...
Nah, there was... Well, it did happen along the journey for sure, but not the first couple of meetings, right?
So everyone's on their best behaviour.
But it was more of a. I suppose the first meeting we had, there was a little bit. You tend to, when you're having a beer, you tend to actually drink with who you've always drunk with, right?
Yeah. So was it? Well,
you saw that there was like not a divide, but there was sort of tables. And then that was mine and Mark's job, right? So we were captains. We needed to get up and make things
mix things up a little bit.
So I was comfortable with that because I'd played with a few of them boys in that group that in representative stuff and playing against them, you always have like sort of chat after the game and that. So I sort of found it pretty easily to mix and mingle, and so did Corny and the other blokes that have been around for a while. They helped things move along. Like Corey Pearson was a great advocate of getting people together. Nathan Brown was really good at that. So Trent Barrett, Sean Timmins, they're really good guys. So we found our niche and got to know each other really well quick. But it had there was a couple of incidents later on at training and in clubs and pubs and whatever that people didn't see eye to eye about what jumpers they wore and who was playing in what position, because it was always a challenge when you got people that are in the squad that are first graders. They're not reserve graders, they're first graders. They've played first grade the year before. They might be 100 plus games, and all of a sudden they're not getting an opportunity, or they're playing reserve grade. So yeah, that had its challenge in the first probably 18 months, 2 years.
Was it hard for you as a skipper to put those fires out?
I suppose that's about leadership, isn't it? It depends how hard you make it. I sort of always like to listen first and hear the conversation around what is it fair or unfair, I suppose. And if it's something that I didn't like, I'd challenge it. If it's something I thought was fair, I'd probably raise it. So, I think that's the biggest thing. I didn't, whether I played 100 games with him or one, I wanted to see it as it was. I didn't really care about other people's opinions, just want to see it through my eyes, and then I'd say what I thought through my mouth, I had a good relationship with both coaches, Wadey and Andrew, so they were both there.
That must have been strange.
It was strange, but it would have been hard for them.
Yeah, very difficult.
Because they're both obviously got a few different ideas, but one replaced the other, and as history goes, but they work well together. I think they've got to have a lot of credit in that first 12 months, because we went from not winning many games early. I think we lost 4 of our first 5, maybe. We went down to Canberra and won a game. And
with a massive weight of expectation, right?
Huge. And all eyes on, because, it was a joint venture. It was the first joint venture.
And it was public knowledge. Everybody knew you guys were operating over and above the salary cap of everybody else. Correct. This isn't a disguise. This is in plain sight, right?
Absolutely.
So I know there wasn't as much media attention then, but the expectation would have been, this new franchise team has to blow the comp away. And
you'd think so. Yeah, but we again, the coaches done really well, because the start the chemistry wasn't there, and I suppose everybody wanted to play their way that they've been used to for so long, and all of a sudden you had to just really adjust and fit into the new system, and it took a little bit of time, but we did make through the GF in the end.
Yeah, well, I was going to say you got to that.
But it took a long time, and there was a few times that players got injured and other players replaced them, and the players got fit again, and then they needed to come back in the side, or did they come back into the side because of the team going so well? So it was a real, arm wrestle for positions when it come down to it. So I suppose that raised the level how you perform, because the challenge within.
Yeah, it figures itself out.
Yeah, it does,
right?
in the end. Yeah.
It figures itself out. What are your recollections from that GF?
I haven't watched it.
Never watched it.
Never watched it. We were comfortably in front. I know that. I got pretty well banged early in the game, so sort of the whole thing's a bit dusty. But like we had our opportunity. There's no doubt in that. And then, a few decisions during the day. Us and the opposition, and I suppose the bloke in the middle, around the conversation of how the game played out, a penalty try to finish, to lose the game with a couple of minutes to go. In the end, mate, when you put it down, we weren't good enough. We had our chances and we didn't win. To look back, and Lazo's a mate of mine from a lot of footy we played together in Origin, but to see him do cartwheels at the end of the game and win his fifth one, he could have shared one with me. So that was pretty hard to watch, because a lot of players were playing their last game because they didn't have a contract after that year, and it was coming to an end, sort of thing. So I retired after that year, after I got the diagnosis of my shoulder, which they said was pretty well irreparable to play the following year. So I retired, and obviously I come back in 2001. But like Rod Wishart, for argument's sake, Mark Coyne, two legends of the game, not playing after that was pretty difficult.
Yeah, pretty somber.
Yeah, it was. It was a somber couple of days for sure.
Yeah, it's not the when you get so close to the fairy tale. It's
and you don't act. Well, you've done it. You've done it a few times in England and here. And you sort of you got a hand on it, but you actually can't hold it.
Yeah,
do you know what I mean? So that was hard, and we knew that our team was good enough too. By the way, because we'd beaten Melbourne a couple of weeks prior by 30 in Melbourne in the semi. So it wasn't that we sort of lost. We lost the game, and take nothing away from Melbourne, they were too good, obviously on the day. But we knew if we played at our best, we could win the game.
Yeah,
and we did.
Yeah, that must have been incredibly frustrating. You say you finished playing. Was coaching always on the radar? You spoke before about just how much of an important part of your life rugby league was and still is. But was coaching something you wanted to get into? Obviously, you spoke before about that. Oh, well, I just kind of do my work and not sure on.
Yeah, no, never. Coaching was never really on my agenda back then. I finished in 2001, and I was quite content of what I'd done in the game up until that point. The club wanted to keep me on. Peter Dowse wanted to keep me on at the club in some capacity, and I was right into the strength and conditioning side of. As you get older, you get wiser, and
you went from doing no gym to
absolutely to a lot. As I got older, I had a lot of injuries throughout my career. I think I had 14 ops. So I had to recover a lot. So that taught me a lot about the body and how important it is as you get older and it's slower, and your dietary needs and your mental and your physical needs. And I got into doing a few courses, and so when I come back, I wanted to be around rugby league, but it certainly wasn't as a coach. It was more as a performance manager, and I started off doing a little bit of work at the club in and around with David Boyle, who's a mentor of mine, around strength and conditioning, more in the agility side, speed, agility, and assist in the gym. And after 4 or 5 years, Dave moved on, and I took over that role as the high performance manager, what it's classed as now, but it's really a strength and conditioning coach. Then the GPS started to come out, so I learned all about that. And then it sort of gave me a really good understanding of how clubs work. being in that role and the importance that person plays with the coach. And then I started doing a little bit of skills work with outside backs, and then that sort of pushed me into, well, I actually could be okay at this. I enjoyed it. And I was starting to enjoy the skill side of it and the teaching side of it more than the strength and conditioning side of it. And then I went away from the game for a couple of years, and I went and coached West Illawarra, which is a great experience because you've got to learn everything. Around your recruitment, you still got to do the conditioning and strength. You've got to clean the water bottles, and you've got to get a footy team together that work through the day and do it for the right reasons in the afternoon, train a couple of days a night and weekend. And the team I went with hadn't won a comp in 18 years, which is a long time locally, and they were a very wealthy side, so wealthy club. So I coached them, and we won our premiership the first year. We won 3 in a row, so that really gave me this is okay, right? This is enjoyable. This is, and when you're winning, you have great times. Winning covers a lot of things. So I was really enjoying what we done there, and then I got offered the job to be reserve grade coach in at the Steelers. I'd done that for 2 years, and then went into assistant role with Pricey. So that was probably how my career started, but never really wanted to be a head coach of the NRL. But the closer I got to it, the more I learned, the more enjoyable and the more passion and really drive I had.
Yeah, so you take over mid-season from Pricey. What year was that again? Was that
14?
14. Was it strange taking over mid-season?
That was difficult.
You change. What do you do? Like, do you change much?
Yeah, it was difficult. Firstly, because Steve was a good mate of mine and still is, and I was away at the time. I was with Laurie in the Origin, and we just wrapped up the series. We just won the series, and it was going into game 3, and I got a phone call that what had transpired when I wasn't there, and so I rang him and said, "Mate, I'm out with you," because I just didn't feel right at the time to take someone else's position when I was working with him. And I spoke to him about it, and he said, "No, I want you to do it. You got a career here. You need to take this on." So that was a sort of a sliding door moment for me, because it could have been one or the other. I could have just left the game completely. Had stayed on as obviously assistant, but didn't take the head coaching role, or take the role that I did. What can you change? You can only change minimal, quickly. Over the period of the season, I think we had 14 games to go or 13 games to go. You could sort of try and, manipulate and change little things that you think could work, that had a little bit of a instant success, to really show what you're about. And it's just around their attitude of training and their needs and your needs and making sure the professionalism's from the gate to, from your door to the gate sort of thing. And, change a few things around your performance staff and things that I thought needed changing at the time. And I was lucky and we won a few games. Like we won 7 of the 12, 13, 14 games, whatever was left. And, the position was available, obviously, at the end of the year, and they interviewed a few players, and I was one of the people they interviewed, and I got the job.
We're going to take a quick break from the podcast to tell you about AG1, the daily foundational nutritional drink with all your needs in the one place. I like to look after my health, and AG1 takes care of that for me. No more tablets, vitamin pills, all the health, nutrition I need, all in the one place. Every single morning, it's as easy. Open up the fridge, scoop of AG1 in a glass, cold water, stir it with a fork, drink it. It tastes great, and it helps me know. It gives me the peace of mind that all my nutritional needs are taken care of, all in the one drink. It really is as simple as that. And also, anybody that knows anything about health benefits knows that it comes with adding simple routines to your day. It's not about magic pills. They're not going to work. AG1 helps me be the best version of myself by having this new habit of every single morning having that drink. I know my nutritional bases are covered thanks to AG1. A lot of athletes are now taking AG1, and with 75 high quality ingredients, it's no wonder why. If a comprehensive solution is what you need from your supplement routine, then try AG1 and get a free 1-year supply of vitamin D and 5 free AG1 travel packs with your first purchase. Go to drinkag1.com/buy round. That's drinkag1.com/buy round. Check it out. Let me fast forward you to the back end of the 2017 season. The Dragons had got off to a flying start, but then tapered off a little bit. And then it all comes down to the final game of the season versus the Bulldogs. Do you remember that game?
I remember it.
Yeah.
You were involved in it.
I was. It was my final game for the Bulldogs.
Did you play finals that year?
No, couldn't play finals. And
so why didn't you just taper off a bit?
Because I was going to the Dragons the next year, so I wanted to always see improvements.
Oh, you wanted the team to improve, right?
Yeah, well, I go, make an impact, improve, not make finals and make finals, and that did happen. So, see, always thinking, coach, always thinking. But no, that 17 season, finishing up after starting so well, what were your thoughts there and leading into the 2018 season? Obviously, you were bringing over a couple of players. Signed Ben Hunt on a huge deal. You've got your star halfback. You bring in a pretty decent front rower called Jeremy Latimore.
Slow one.
No, you got some signings in place, but what are your thoughts after that 2017 season?
Yeah, I think obviously 17 we did get off to a flyer. We were always known when I was coach for the May Premiers because we always started the year very well. We played finals in obviously my first year in 15, and then we just missed out in 16. I think we finished 10th in 16, but we had our times that we were going really well that year as well. 17, we were leading the comp for a long period of time, and fell in we got a few injuries. Which is always difficult because we didn't really have the depth in our squad in most years, but that year particularly. But we could still play finals towards the end, and we're playing years in the last game, and a lot didn't go right on the day, and it ended up being a really frustration because I thought we had the players back that we needed back to win that game, and we didn't. So there's no excuse if players not available. We actually had them back by then. However, we didn't win. And going into that off season, I thought, what we had done early was really what we were going to lean on going forward. And our first halves of that year were we would have finished second on the competition. So I looked at the end of the year, and if you just stopped the game at half time, we were second in the competition.
Is that in 2017?
2017. So I thought, right, we needed to be fitter. We needed to be a little bit, our training needed change. So we attacked that season a little bit different. We thought we needed, obviously, a class halfback. Josh McCrone done a fantastic job for us in 17. He had a good combination with Gaz. We lost Dugan. He went to Cronulla after that season. So we had a young bloke named Dufty who had a fair bit of speed, so we were going to play him in the fullback position. So we got a halfback that was at the elite level in Benny Hunt. And we thought we needed an older person. But
I think I was only 31.
Well, that's old. But we need a leader, to be honest, in our forward pack. We didn't have that, and we needed someone that knew how to win close games of footy. We needed a competitor. We needed someone that had a high threshold for pain. We need someone that will teach young blokes at training what training needs to be like at this level for a period of time. And that was you. So that really changed everything we needed to move forward in 18. So I was very confident going in 18 season, knowing that our pre-season went really well. Through the learnings from 2017, what needed to change, what players we brought in, what players had left, and our depth through our kids that we were starting to bring through then. So, Lomax was just established, Blake Lorries was just established, so Luciano Lalea was playing a little bit of first grade then. So we're on the right path with experienced guys, and, it went pretty good for us in 18 for a long period of time.
Yeah, it was a good balance within the squad, and I'm not sure about you, but for me, the 18 season we were flying. Then we hit a bit of a strange period and just not fell off a cliff. We just couldn't get it right, but I was always confident going into finals. So I think, if I remember correctly, we were still only 2 points off minor premiers, weren't we? Yeah. Even though we finished 7th,
yep.
It was a really congested 8, which again was like, okay, well, we're all not that far apart. We've beaten the best all season. Like, I was extremely confident. We just need to turn it, and I'd been part of teams before that turned it on in finals, and I knew we could do it. But unfortunately, the injury gods just
smashed us.
Decided no.
Yeah, who was out? We had
Widdup went in the first game at Brisbane. Vaughan went in the training session that week. And then Tarek Sims. Vaughan was a New South Wales front row at the time. Tarek Sims was a New South Wales back row that season at the time. So they were playing that well. They were both playing for their state. Sims goes down in the game just before halftime in the following week.
Yeah.
What's it like as I know as a player, you're thinking, well, you're obviously devastated, but what's it like as a coach to see that opportunity not slip through your fingers but pass you by based off uncontrollables?
Yeah.
Because that's what it was. That's what it was. I think if we're fit and healthy, we're going to take some beating.
Yeah, we still did take some beating. We got beaten in the end by 3 field goals.
Yes,
by Reynolds.
we did. Yeah. I don't know how we'd have fared the week after with no Sims, but we'd have given it a red hot crack.
Yeah.
No Sims, no Widdup, no Vaughan. The three of the and Gaz at the time, I think he was best 5/8 in the competition.
Yeah, he was. He got the Dalian 5 that year. We led the competition for 20 rounds in 18, and then we didn't bounce out of Origin very good. I think you guys went over to England that year for a game. Was that
Denver?
Denver?
No,
sorry, was it America?
America, yeah, in Denver. I think
was
that was the following. I think it was the following year.
But I know we come out a bit jaded. I'm not sure, but I think. Well, I know we come out of that a bit of jaded because a lot of players had played their first. Jack de Belin played his first Origin series. Vaughnie played his first Origin. Tarek played his first. So I think them guys come out of it a little bit. Better for it in the long run, but they were played a bit more footy than they probably needed to or they had done before. And it was about managing that through the week and then without losing your position at where we were on the ladder. And then I think we won 4 of our next 10 maybe. And then again, we were only a win away from minor premier. So going to the finals, I was very confident that, like you said, if we get our footy right, we can win. So we went up to Brisbane and we won comfortably. We won by 40 plus. And then we had a few injuries come out of that game, a few blokes that weren't available prior to that game. And then I just had a feeling that we could still get it done against South. And then Tarek went off and we were in front 10-0 at that stage, I think. And then obviously, Renault kicked our teeth in the end with kicking them 3 field goals. But that year really gave me confidence in what was next. So I wasn't, although I thought there was a window there for us to win that competition that year, I always thought the year after was always going to be better for what we had done in 18.
Yeah, I was in agreement with you. I left that season. I was devastated, but I was thinking we're on to something
Yeah,
here.
we definitely were. And we didn't have to change too much because our squad was the same.
Yeah.
I think Corey Norman actually was an addition to our squad.
That was after. The Corey Norman only came in, I think, January, February.
Correct.
Once Gareth had announced he was leaving the
and that was difficult. That was one of the most difficult things as a coach when you talk about coaching the uncontrollables was that decision that Gareth made at the time to leave our club. He was the captain. He was the best six in the game. He had a great relationship with the players, and I had a good relationship as a coach. Although challenging, he was my captain. We always didn't see everything the same, but I knew what was coming when he spoke. You know what I mean? I knew he'd be upfront about it. So the decision for him to walk away from something we built around him was pretty hard as a coach. Because we bought a halfback that we thought would suit Gareth, even though Benny obviously got paid what he did because the halfback coming off. He suited what Gareth was about, how he played. And the combination they had in 18 was pretty well untouchable for a long period of time. So it was yin and yang there. But, then we brought in Corey early because Para were looking for some loose change, I suppose, and then we were looking to bolster that side because we thought, well, with Corey coming, that gave us stability around the halves or at fullback because he played a fair bit of fullback. So it only made us stronger for that 19 year. But it didn't work out all that way, mate, did it?
No, it didn't. Like I say, the 19 season was looking promising, and I think it was around Christmas time, 18. An off-field incident involving one of our best players.
I thought he was the glue of the forward pack at the time. Yeah.
It at first when it gets announced, like what's the process for? Sorry, not getting out. Trying to find the correct words. How does a coach find out about an incident like this?
I found out about the incident at training. So a little bit before, just before we went on the field on the morning. So, look, it was really strange, and something that I thought wouldn't really have an impact because it gets sorted out before the season got underway. So never once did I think Jack wasn't available. That's number one, and I think the players in the round wanted to support Jack as well as thought that it'd be worked out before we placed the boot. So at the time, I sort of got told only what I needed to know, which was okay. I had a job to do with everyone else, not only Jack. But I always thought the policy around, Australia is innocent unless proven guilty. So I always thought that he'd have his time in court. Whatever happened would happen, but I never thought it'd impact him playing rugby league.
And never had impacted anyone previously either.
Yeah,
I couldn't recall a player being stood down on a charge. In fact, no player was. Players had been suspended once they'd had their time in court.
Yeah,
but
so
not prior to that.
Yeah, and I don't think the NRL were ready for it either. And I think that at the time there was a bit of policy on the run. Like,
it was.
Because
they acted retrospectively.
Yeah, and I look back now, and then a distracted team will never reach its potential. That's one thing, and we were distracted from that day on, and then.
But I think from that day on, I don't know if it was from that day on, because I think there was probably an assumption within the group that like Jack's just going to deal with this. And it's not really going to impact us. It's only going to really impact him when he has to go and, attend court, whenever that may be. And he's just gonna keep playing.
Yeah, right.
That's what I probably thought.
Yeah, and I thought the same. I didn't think that he was never not going to take the field, especially when it was at Christmas and we had 3 months prior to that for him to have his time in court, and if he gets to June, well, he plays until such time he goes to court again. So I was never sort of looking at replacing him at the time because I always thought he was available. And I gather you thought the same, which is...
Well, we did. And was it the January or February where the NRL have announced the new no-fault stand-down policy? What, can you remember where...
I was like... I don't exactly remember the exact date, but I do remember it was prior to... They were having another discussion about it mid-year, and that was when I think Jack had to go back to court. And I remember that one because we were playing Newcastle.
I remember that in Mudgee.
In Mudgee.
That was about whether or not... was that?
No, there was going to continue not to be available.
Yeah. I remember I remember that one distinctively.
Yeah, so
and it came out at like 4:00 on a Friday.
Correct.
And we were playing on the Saturday. And it was
boom. Yeah, and there was a few things which were in conversation with the leadership group. Said that, that you very strongly about this is not right, what's happened. And I understood the player side of it because I was an ex-player and I understood how important a teammate is. And at the time, it was pretty hard to swallow, to be honest. And I think that distraction really put us in a bit of a spiral situation for the finish of the season.
Yeah.
Just prior to that, I just, I never felt like moving Jack aside and letting him train somewhere else or not be part of the football group, because I think for him, for his mental state and for his time in court would come to prove whether he's guilty or not guilty, he needed stability in his life and he needed a routine, and that was always to be around the people that he spent most of his time with, which is his players and his staff.
Yeah, because I remember it being like the unknown. In January, New South Wales had a camp and all possible New South Wales and all incumbent players went, but they said no to Jack because these charges were obviously made public. There was a lot of newspaper talk, press talk around it. I think the media did influence the no fault stand down policy being enacted. But it look, speaking like for us at the time, it that no fault stand down policy coming in, I think there was no way. Sorry, it was a new situation. It was unique to us.
Yeah.
We didn't know how to handle it as players, clubs, administrators. It was
and I didn't either. I just thought that
we didn't know where to focus our energies. Like we didn't know. Like we were a little bit lost.
Yeah, we were. We sort of managed it okay early. We won 4 of our first 6 games. But we lost Gareth again with another shoulder in game 2 or 3 against Brisbane.
At the same ground.
Yeah, so that put a fair bit of pressure on, like losing our captain. That was his last year before he went away. He was in for a big year to go off, and he started the year very well. That was very hard to swallow on top of what was happening with Jack at the moment. So we basically lost our best player and captain in Gaz, and then our glue in the forward pack that really held us together defensively, we lost him as well, coming from what happened the year prior to, getting so deep as we did in the final. So we handled it early, but then that situation in Mudgee when they actually said it was official, and there was no recovery from it.
We were so full of hope.
Oh, we were all, and I was.
I was
probably leading the charge.
We thought that the stand down policy was going to be deemed illegal, right?
Yeah, correct.
But they upheld it.
Yeah,
and
and
do you think we we were too confident? Do you think we were like? Do you think that was the wrong approach?
I think we were optimistic because we just thought it would be we'd follow what the court proceedings are. We'd follow what's law, and law is you innocent unless proven guilty in the court of law. And he didn't get his chance in the court of law. He was proven not guilty, but he's proven that he had something that was too big to ignore. So he got stood down. And obviously, you know, as a coach to where, number one, the club, I thought, done the decency to pay Jack what he needed to pay to survive and live and family. But we didn't replace Jack. We didn't replace Jack for 2 years. So that's we couldn't replace Jack, but we could get I don't know how it exactly worked then because I wasn't in control of.
Well, but basically it'd be like saying, okay, you can replace a like for like. Okay, we'll just get Jake Dvorovich from Manly.
No, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Oh, Manly just going, okay.
No, but
Like,
you can't do that. You definitely can't.
You know, where are you going to pull this person up that's, you know, playing for state?
Yeah, you can't do that. But you could replace him with a player that with the amount of money that he was on if you get the
Which didn't exist.
Which didn't exist.
Yeah. Do you think the club got it right with its attitude and how we handled that situation?
In towards accepting the decision?
Yeah.
No. I don't know what more they could have done because I wasn't in that space, but I think, it could have been challenged harder of who pays for Jack because you've made the decision, not the club. Then that allows us that money to be freed up to buy another player. I know that player probably wouldn't have been Jack, but it could have been two, which could have compensated a little bit for our balance of our squad. Could they have challenged the decision harder? I wasn't in the room when the decision was made with the people to be, but I didn't believe in that decision because I feel that everyone in society gets the opportunity to present himself in court to be guilty or not guilty. And until that the time comes, I think you need the opportunity to be innocent unless proven guilty. So I've always been pretty strong about that. And it's been since found that, you know, 2 years plus down the track, that, you know, he was found that he didn't go to jail and there was no more said and done. So, yeah. So, you know, and again, I wasn't in the court, so I don't know what happened throughout that process, but I do know that he didn't go to jail.
Was there much conversation at boardroom level between with yourself, or did you have many conversations with the board during this time?
But it was different because there was 3 CEOs in that 18 months. Like Peter Dowse retired in 2018, so he retired just before that happened. Jono was a fabulous, or still is a fabulous man, a very positive guy. Would do absolutely.
I'm just laughing because you had Cameron McInnes on last week, and we spoke about the never been better comments.
Okay,
very positive guy.
Yeah, very, and would do anything. So I think he would have done what he could do, but I just don't feel that the outcome was something that was justified.
See, from my thoughts there and recollections at the time, I was trying to drive a bit of a narrative of like, let's just, it's us against everybody else. Like, I don't know if we were, like, that's what I was thinking could get the best out of us if we created this, like, the NRL hates us, the league hate us.
I remember that.
You know, go into that power of hate. And I think I even said to you, let's go and win it.
The old dogs of war, mate.
Yeah, and let's win this comp.
Yeah,
and refuse the trophy and just be like, nah.
Yeah.
We don't want any.
Then you broke your leg.
Then I broke my leg. Yeah, I did.
So you know, like it's and that's easier said than done, right? Without key personnel in your side. So
Yeah, but I thought that's the approach.
Yeah.
we should have talked of like everyone's like agree or not agree.
yeah,
Everyone's against us, and for me the no fault stand down policy at that time I was so against it because it had been acted retrospectively. Now people may argue and people make a case for that being the correct course of action, and I agree with a lot of the points that those people
absolutely.
make. I think had it have been November 2018, the NRL look at it and go, look guys, we've got an image problem here. If anything like this happens moving forward, this is our policy. There would have been maybe some pushback, but not as much as what came, because I thought it was you can't act that you can't act.
It was reactive.
Yeah. You know, if you put that in place, then I guess
and,
fair
and
enough.
I get there's no
And
right or
obviously
wrong.
how culture changes, like it will happen to a player now, and you know it's only been 3-4 years, and you just go, oh yeah, because that's the new norm, right?
Yep.
But again, back then it was couldn't quite believe it. That's why I was so trying to drive that narrative of like the power of hate is incredible. Like everybody hates us, everybody's conspiring against us. Like use that narrative. That probably wasn't true. It was just how the NRL thought they needed to act.
Yeah. And there was an image of the game that was they wanted to change, and I understand that, especially as a leader and a coach of a club and an organisation and a leader of men, right?
Yeah, and even I was trying to get into the narrative a little bit of like, no other club supporting us here. Like no other group of players is supporting us. They hate us. But I don't know. I don't know why. Like that was my thoughts of just make it as if everyone hates us. But it was a unique situation. A situation nobody could have prepared for, nobody saw coming.
It's hard because you look back, you know, and you look back on your career and you think of things why were you so successful at the time, and then why weren't you? Within pretty well, we went from a team that was not far away, like 2 points away from finishing minor premiers, to a bottom 4 side within 12 months. So I look at, you know, what made that change and what would you do differently. And with the Jack thing, I'm not sure that too much could have changed or would have changed with the when I look back at it, situations are what they are, and sometimes you just go with your gut. And, you know, my gut was never push him away, bring him closer, and understand that one day he'll have his time to make whatever happens in court happens, and then you're on your own, son. You know what I mean? Like, but give him that chance to have that.
Because it was strange. That, you know, we'd go to training and there'd be cameras there every day.
Yeah,
like every day, trying to get.
There was definitely a distraction, mate. And as I said before,
but again, I don't think the club could have acted any differently to ostracize him.
No,
like I don't think that would have. You know, people go, "Oh, was that the right call or the wrong call?" Personally, I think that would have made it worse for the club and because, you know, he was a very popular member of the group. Obviously, we were fighting for him to keep playing, but I don't think we could have discarded him. No.
Looking back now, the only thing he was cutting everyone in half at training, and you were seeing every day what you were missing out in the footy field, you know, and that probably that has its challenges a little bit as well, because you've got a player that's fully fit. He's not injured. He's training the house down. He's making us look a little bit silly at times at training and in the reserve grade side or in the pose sessions. Yet come weekend, you're not going out to bleed beside him. So that was always the challenge that I sort of seen as a coach. And, you know, you want him to pull back, but he hasn't got that in him. It's all out or nothing, right? So,
well, that was his game time.
Yeah,
and he was he was training to
be ready, I suppose.
Plan in hope of they're going to drop this.
Yeah,
or the stand down policy is going to be reneged.
Correct. And that
So
was
you couldn't blame you
no,
know.
you couldn't. No, definitely not. So it was hard, yeah. And everyone had an opinion of why is he there? What's he still with these guys? Like you're saying, media every day. Like every time I get interviewed, you get asked about it. So it was always front and centre. It was never out the back, you know what I mean? And it just grew. Like that grew from that day on till basically I finished because it was still going. It was still going from 18 to 2020 when I finished.
Yeah. Yeah, well, the 2019 season, well, it was looking promising. It ended poorly.
Yep.
Due to a number of circumstances. You speak about the Gareth Widdop again, hitting that shoulder. Then we go to 2020. Shane Flanagan gets appointed as your assistant coach. Obviously, he's the coach in waiting now. What were your thoughts on him coming in to assist you then?
Well, I'd been very loyal for a number of years to Dean and Ben, Benny Hornby and Dean Young, who were great coaches, or still are great coaches, one's at South and obviously one's at the Cowboys. And I just felt like that, and the club felt like that we needed some change. So I sort of had to make a decision. It wasn't a comfortable one because, Benny and Dino, there's no difference between their abilities. I just had to make a decision what was going to happen and what Shane's strengths were, because he was a conversation of an experienced coach coming in to give us a little point of difference, because we haven't had that for some time. And if you're not leaving an organisation, you need to bring in fresh ideas now and again. Shane was coming back with a solid point to prove that he'd been out of the game for a few years, and no one really wanted to give him an opportunity to get back into coaching, because they may have felt that he was a threat to their position, or they just didn't feel that he'd be the right mix for what they needed at their club. So I thought I was never afraid of bringing in someone that was experienced as I was, if not more, and had won a competition. There was always going to come in and see what he could bring to help us.
Because he'd served his time there, but he couldn't coach. He couldn't take up a head coach's job still, but he was allowed to be involved in an organisation, right?
Yeah, and that suited him at the time, and it suited us at the time. So.
Sorry, just in terms of him coming to the club, was that you were the driver to that, or was that?
I think both. So I felt that after 19, did we need change? I wasn't sold on it, but the club thought it was a good idea to bring.
When you say the club,
the power, the powers, the
board, because I'm right in thinking some of the board aren't or weren't Shane's biggest fan, right?
That's fair.
Was there some pushback?
Yeah,
between the board,
board.
Then.
Yeah.
So have you?
Not going into names or anything.
But have you got to present the case there to
the board they were okay.
So you've got two. It's a split board.
Yeah.
Are we thinking one half was yes, one half was no?
I couldn't say that. I just there was some people that were arguing whether he was the right person to bring in the organisation, even though he's with his experience. Yeah.
And do you get the final say?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. So I felt after a conversation with them and with some people that I hold high, some players' conversation as well, that do we need stimulation? Do we need a bit of change with the coaching staff? After digesting all that, I thought there was an opportunity here, to bring in an experienced guy. Had a review with Gus after that 19 season. Yes. Conversation with some people on the board, some people on the staff. Again, players going over it a bit, but most difficult thing was to tell one of the coaches that I felt very great mateship, been with me from the start, and I gave them their opportunity to coach, both Dean and Ben, because they were coaching Flegg back then. And they hadn't been in the coaching system, but I gave them opportunity, and they worked so well and been ups and downs with me to tell one of them that, it's time to go. I have to bring, or don't have to, but I feel it's right to bring in someone else. So anyway, in comes Shane, and he was he's very busy. He was he come with a really he couldn't work with us till Christmas.
Oh, yeah.
Because he was still suspended until Christmas. But, he great work ethic. Acknowledgement of the game's good. He'd won a competition, been around some really good personnel and leaders in what he had with Gal and Mickey Innes and Lukey Lewis and Graham. He had some really core people in that group that probably helped him win that competition, to be honest. And, he come in and with fresh ideas, and he worked with Dino around our defence and stuff. So look, that was how it eventuated.
Yeah, so the 2020 season, COVID strikes 2 weeks in, then it starts back again. And then there was the infamous... You had a lot of your power taken away from you.
Yeah.
When did that? Was that when it came back from COVID, or was it before?
No, it was after.
It was after COVID for rounds. Yep. The season is about to commence.
Yep.
Rounds 3.
Yep.
After a lengthy break,
5 or 6 week break. Yeah.
Yeah, and the club say to you, "Look, we're going to start a selection panel. Can you run us through how on earth that come about and why in your opinion?"
Yeah, look, that was that was probably the start of the end, to be honest. It'd been a couple of years where prior to that, a year and a half, that I didn't really have acknowledgement of what players were getting paid, which was okay to a certain extent, but it started to unfold not the way I would have liked to see it.
In terms of recruitment?
Yeah, recruitment and retention.
So you had
list
that
management.
So you had that.
So that taken away prior, because they felt that my best way of doing things was X's and O's as a coach on the field, in the video room, and they'll look after that. There's things in place to look after that for now and the future. And I thought, well, at the moment we spoke about it, but we were going quite well in 18, 19. So it really didn't. Sorry, 18 and the start of 19. So
when,
it really
when did
didn't.
they start doing that foot?
Yeah, Peter Dowse started that back in 17, before Benny and yourself come to the club. So look, so going forward into when the selection, we hadn't started the season great. We'd lost a couple of close games. COVID hit, come back, lost a game against the Warriors.
The Warriors,
yeah. And then played Cronulla, and had a victory. I think that was in round 5 or 6. Anyway, they thought that there was a lot of heat, I think, after the Canterbury game.
Yeah, we lost the first 2. I know one of those was Penrith. Came back, played Warriors and Bulldogs.
Yeah, and I think that was the start of the end. And they thought that was in the best interest of myself to get a little bit of help.
But on team selections though, so it was you all cast a vote on who plays fullback, and it's whoever gets the most votes. So each vote is equal. And sorry, let's go back a little bit. Who makes this
board?
Is it a suggestion or is it a direction?
No, it's a direction.
It's not like I think this is what we should do,
it's a direction.
Coach. It's this is what we're doing.
Yeah.
Like how did they tell you? And when you say the board, well, it
was COVID, so no, you couldn't talk to the board, only on Zoom.
So who
Benny Iran come in and obviously I got a comment.
So Benny Iran is the football manager.
Yeah.
So he's being directed by because I think sometimes the people when you hear the board, it's like, well, who?
Yeah.
So did you get to speak to the board directly and say, like, did you have an opposition?
I
to
spoke to the CEO and I spoke to not the board directly. That's coming. That was further down the track, but they thought it was the best interest of helping me, which I wasn't that comfortable with, to be honest.
Well, 100%.
But I honestly thought at the time, well, it's not going to make much change. I'm the coach. The assistant coaches will just pretty well. We'll have a chat prior to it, and we'll go in and things will be done pretty similar to what they've been done. But then Benny Horan had to be in the room. That went back to
What do you mean? Like, so
well, he was the
a mediator
to the board, yeah. So
but like saying like, okay, so it's between yourself, Dean Young, and Shane Flanagan.
So three selections.
So you go, okay, so Benny Horan go, name your fullback. Dufty, Lomax. Deciding vote goes to
whoever's.
Or did you go, here's my 17,
I'd have a discussion before we go in the room, but that whatever happened in that room, so if it was 2-1, it was 2-1. Wasn't always the team that I wanted. Yeah. So that was very hard to sort of own the result, but don't own the process of who should and shouldn't be playing, and
was there
what
any
positions they should or shouldn't be playing.
Was there any
well.
big outs or big decisions that went against you that you can recall?
Yeah.
Would you like?
They're only doing their job, so it's not on them guys.
No,
either,
I know. Like, and it's okay to have a difference of opinion. That's fine. But was there a call that you can remember where it was like, well, I want this person playing in this position?
Absolutely.
That was taken away from you.
Yes.
Can you tell us who that player was? No, that's fair. That's fair.
But there definitely was, and that it sort of in the beginning I thought, you know what, like just go with it, and then as the weeks went on, it sort of, I suppose I just got more and more uncomfortable, and because I'd have to talk to the player where the change was changed, and it had to be on me. It couldn't be on anyone else, on the coach. So I'd have to make the initial conversation of why the change was made, even though it's not entirely what I wanted. And I'm not, as you know, I'm a person that likes things straight up. So, you wear the bruises for sometimes what you don't really want. That was difficult, and then it got to a stage where the few of the players were leaving, like yourself. You went overseas, and we had a few blokes that didn't have our roster full, and players were starting to ask me what's going on with the words are out, the selection panel. Are you making decisions, or is the group making decisions? Who's coming into the side? Who's replacing you when you left? And I didn't have any answers, mate. So, and I didn't want to lie, so I just basically made a decision that I can't keep doing this. The results weren't great for the prior 14 months. So I just rang my manager and said, look, before that we had a Zoom call with some board members and the CEO and Ben Arant. I said, look, I can't keep doing what you're asking of me. I'd like to, number one, get fully in control of the roster list management going forward, because I still had 18 months on my contract. And number two was I need to select the team. I don't think the other coaches are all that comfortable doing it, and I want to do it. I'm not in agreement of everything that's going on of the selection of the team. And they thought the people that were on the Zoom meeting wasn't all board members, it was some. They were pretty comfortable. That made sense. So they'll get back to me, and by the end of the week they got back to me and said, nothing's changing. Well, that was just, to me, it was like, okay, well, you're not really needed too much here anymore. So I just rang my manager and said, look, what's happening is not how it should be. He said, right, I'll leave it with me. He said, do you want to do something now? I said, yeah. I always thought, for me as a coach, my methodology was, start with the end point in mind and work your way backwards to where you are now, and then try and close that gap as quick as you can. And I thought that gap was getting further apart. So the end point is obviously winning a competition. the starting point where we were was where we were, and how do I close that? The first two things that I could do is, okay, get control of what you can, team and the list, and start working friggin' hard to fix it. And when you haven't got that control, I just saw that it would get further apart, further away from me. So I just couldn't stay there any longer. So we made the decision to part ways.
What's your feeling towards the board?
Look, I'm very grateful for the opportunity that I had with the club, and some of them board were still on the board. So I've got nothing personally against them. I actually still class them as friends, but I certainly don't agree with what unfolded. And I'm sure they probably, looking back, maybe would have changed the decision in hindsight too. But I don't think the board ever done anything to hurt me. Like, I don't think that was ever in conversation. I thought they were always trying to help, but sometimes caring can get into an uncontrollable state where it actually hinders.
Well, do you think as well, like, my assessment is this happened to you where the board were interfering, not doing what they're supposed to do. So they're interfering. It became the catalyst to you leaving. It was like made a position almost untenable.
Correct.
But do you think there was part of them that were just too gutless to get you in and say, look, we're moving on? Because I'm thinking back to Anthony Griffin's recent tenure, and him, they didn't want to make a call. They didn't want to say, you're not here next year. It was, we're going to interview other candidates for season 2024, instead of just saying, you're not our coach.
Mm. Yeah, it was probably different, my situation, because I had a good relationship with a lot of them for a long period of time.
Different, but on the same token, it's a board that just seems frightened to make a call.
Yeah, well, they couldn't actually talk to me in person because it was COVID. Do you know what I mean? So we couldn't actually have them conversations one-on-one. And I would have loved to confront the board and have a situation where we're talking about it openly, face-to-face, eye-to-eye, where I can explain or get them more to understand what I'm going through right now. That never happened because you couldn't. So I wouldn't say they're faceless because it couldn't happen. But, as I said, I don't know where to really go with this, James, because I feel that they gave me a good opportunity for a long period of time. I wasn't getting the results, but some of the, in the end, the process wasn't in my control. So it was my decision to stop, and I was comfortable at the time because I just didn't see a way forward.
But again, so for my point is, I think it was set up to fail, like it was.
Yeah,
under Anthony Griffin, it was set up to fail with the fact that he had to reapply for his own job. Just make a call.
Yeah. Well,
make a call.
Yeah.
Don't set people up to be for their own demise.
Yeah.
Actually, make a call.
Well, my biggest thing was going from leading the comp in 18 for 20 weeks and getting beaten in the finals to be where we were in 16 months. What could I have done differently to change, and what happened to me that was different to when I was succeeding? And then I got to look at that and learn from that to move forward. And I suppose so do they. And whether they did or not, I'm not sure.
Well, the Dragons haven't changed. It's nowhere near that side from 2018 that you built. That I think anybody that is in and around the game at that time saw what the Dragons were capable, but again, you don't always get what you deserve. The stars don't align, which you need to happen. Injury gods, all that sort of stuff. But what can the Dragons do? Because they are one of those major clubs. You've been involved as a player, as a coach. Are they destined for more of the same? How hard is it as a player, as a coach, to deal with it's common knowledge, a fractured board that don't see eye to eye, that want control, that want power, that both sides feel like they're the main contributor to anything positive happening within the organisation?
Yeah, look, I think a joint venture is always going to have its challenges because of, it's two clubs merged as one, and logistically, if you're a distance apart, as we spoke about, and certainly, St George people will want to do what's right for St George area. Illawarra people want to do what's right for the Illawarra area. But they've got to push that aside and come together, and the marriage has got to be successful, what everyone watches, which is the NRL. Now, for that to go forward, there's got to be some really, and we're not privy to anything that happens in board that might be happening, but just got to push everything aside and really just bind together of what's needed to win a competition. And that's spending. That's letting people that you put in control be in control. And that's being comfortable of doing whatever's needed to win. And successful teams do that. Like if they lose a player, they replace a player. If there's a player that's unsettled at another club and you think he's beneficial for your club, you get him. If you've got money in your cap. And the good teams seem to be able to do that regularly. You look at Pangai Junior, for argument's sake, and just plucking it out, but Penrith, when they brought him in from Brisbane for a number of games. Manly got Lodge from Roosters, who was, I know he's out, but he's a good front rower. Like they're a couple of teams just recently, like that you look at. And if you go through it, I suppose every club's, Roosters brought in Brown because they could think he could improve him from Parramatta. You know what I mean? So there's players out there that teams could replace quickly if you're on the front foot. But if you sit back and wait, that doesn't happen. I think,
Are you thinking back to that time?
Yeah,
with Jack, where they didn't replace.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of things that we were close enough that if we kept pushing and spending or doing what we needed to do, we could have got a better result than we did. So I think that whatever's needed to be successful, they've got to give that coach and the players everything they can to be successful in that period of time that he's there. Shane's experienced. He's won a competition before. He's fully into the recruiting and retention of the list management of what he's doing. But make sure that support continues throughout the whole period of his time. And if he does come across and he needs something, whether it be in and around the environment he's trains in, get it. If you lose a player and you get compensation, use the money.
Yeah,
Spend
don't
it.
sit on the money.
Don't sit on the money. Use it. If he feels like that something is needed that they don't agree upon, but you gave him control, let him do it. Let
You
him.
think he needs full autonomy?
Yeah, definitely.
Full autonomy, not
absolutely. Work with the GM as close as you can with him and report to the board, but let that person do his job.
Because it just seems the task gets.
Well, it's hard because you got two home grounds, which is you never really and great grounds too, by the way, and a supporter base that some travel but some don't. You know what I mean? So it's difficult for everyone. Like and the only way you can really bring people together is win. Like winning brings people together. And that's what they need to do. They need to win to get everyone, back together. Yeah,
finding a way to win. It's clear that you love the club. It's been the only real home you've ever known within rugby league. I know you've had a number of different roles, but for me, I don't know if the club is setting themselves up to fail. You look at some recent decisions, like Cameron McInnesco, like one of the most bizarre calls in rugby league history, in my opinion. Like, why would you let your skipper go that goes and makes 81 tackles to one of your local rivals?
That one, I don't know. I don't know who was control of that, whether that was the coach.
I think, I spoke to Macca a couple of weeks ago, and he said that the coach wanted to see him play before he made a call. I said, just show him that video where you charge down the field goal against South and then run past three players and dive on the ball. There you go. Tick. Yeah. I'll sign him up. Does he want much? No, he doesn't actually. Yeah. He wants probably below market value because he wants to stay because he loves the club and he's our captain. Yeah,
I think them players are hard to find too. Like,
you
know what I mean? You're like, that's for me, it's a no brainer when you got someone in your organisation who's your captain that trains and is professional in every area you possibly can be to win a game of footy on the weekend. You want a team of that. He's getting ready. He expects to win.
He's not getting ready to play. No, he's getting ready to win, and there's a big difference.
Correct.
They let him go. Ben Hunt wants out. Jason Riles, all the reasons to go there. He looks at it, walks away. Like, I genuinely hope Shane Flanagan does well, but I think you're right. He needs full autonomy of that organisation. He can't have interfering powers higher up telling him, setting the environment.
No,
and that's what a lot of leadership and coaching is setting the environment.
Absolutely.
How you make decisions. Like,
yeah, there's only so much a coach can do unless he gets the support of the way he wants to do it.
Like, you get a good team around you, but the buck would stop with you, right?
Yeah, correct. Well, at the end of the day, you're the one that's answering the questions to everyone because you're the coach. So own the process.
Good thoughts. Hopefully it changes in their favour because I have an affiliation with the club. I want to see them do well. I know I'm working at the Bulldogs in a capacity now, but I still have a love for that club as well.
Yeah,
I know with the people
club,
like yourself, like lots of good friends there, but I just can't help but fear they're going to be in for more of the same unless those processes change.
Yep. And I think they are. I think, I can only sort of gather my thoughts around what I read because I don't have anything to do with the club. But what I'm reading is Shane's heavily involved in the recruitment, retention and list management. He's certainly had meetings with players of what he expects from them, what he wants from them. So if he can control everything in and around how they perform and gets what he's needed by the board of when he needs it, then it rests with him, really.
Yeah. Sweet. All right. Well, fingers crossed it does change. So we're on to the questions for each and every guest. First off, Dream Spine, brought to you by our partners at Tooheys. Tooheys are all about teamwork. Coach, I'll give you a pack or a couple to drink a slab to drink when you get home.
You still on the scotch?
Oh, I do enjoy a scotch, yes. But no, this is all thanks to Tooheys, the Dream Spine. Maybe that you've played with, played against.
Okay, so best spine I played with would be...
Well, just let's do it all encompassing.
Oh, okay. Let me have two.
So you're going to do
Let me have two.
All right, so
I have one I play with and then one I think I've watched all the time. How's that sound?
All right,
is that fair?
That's fair.
Okay,
Tooheys will be loving this.
So best spine I played with would be Elias at 9, Stewart at 7, Daly or Fittler at 6. I played with both at the same time in that group.
It's hard to split, isn't it?
And probably Timmy Brasher at fullback. That was the best spine I played with in state. Best spine I could ever, because I'd never go a Queenslander, by the way, even though there's a few of them probably could, Cameron Smith exactly, but mine would be Danny Badiris, because I couldn't go Smithy because he's a Queenslander, because Smithy's the best player I've ever seen. 7, Joey. 6, either Freddie or Laurie, split between them, and 1, Graham Langlands, because I grew up. Chang is a Wollongong boy, and I grew up watching him, and he made unbelievable.
Really?
So that was the bit from old school. Yeah, that would probably be my best spine I could put together. But there's no Queenslanders.
You're showing your age there a little bit.
Yeah, I know.
People will be able to figure that one out.
70s, yeah.
These are
70s?
This dressing like a 30-year-old's not gonna get you far if people know that you used to watch Changalang and Coach. Yeah, just saying.
Absolutely.
Just saying.
Absolutely.
Well, yeah, Coach, as well. We get 3 questions we like to ask each of our guests. If football didn't exist,
Ooh.
what do you think you'd be doing?
Now, what would I think?
Where do you think you would have started off on?
I'm not really sure on that one because I was working at the time in the steelworks, so there wasn't a real career path. I wasn't thinking of a career path when I was young. I was just thinking of an earn, to be honest.
That's what
most
people do.
I go now, and I've definitely been in the building game. Like
you enjoy that?
I love it. I've been involved in it a little bit. So
maybe we can get like a what's that word? A testimonial from your son to talk about. Well,
you seen me house. I built a house.
You claim you've built it.
Yeah, right.
And maybe you were supervising.
Well,
I've seen the house, but that doesn't mean that you're the good builder of it.
Wait. I designed it with an architect, but it was my design to start. Well, give me something here. 1 sec. And then I organised all the trades, and I was on the tools at times when I could find time.
Making the tea, bringing the coffees
and all the
in.
material and everything that is in the house, I picked.
Like made all the sandwiches
With
for the
the
lads.
Eh?
Made all the sandwiches for the
You idiot.
Oh, coach is here. I'll have just a dash of milk, please.
Yeah. Go.
Yeah,
I had a lot to do with it.
I reckon we get a
I've done a few over the times.
I reckon we get a testimonial from your lad to say like,
Absolutely.
Paul did a fantastic
Troy
job.
Larkin's very good carpenter. Just punch a bit of line there.
Yeah. Right.
Okay.
So you do enjoy that.
I love it, mate.
Because you got a few cabins as well, don't you?
Yeah, I got a
you
cabin,
did a few renovations on them, and
down the coast. I've dabbled in a little bit of real estate with building over the time. Done a couple of speckies, 2, 4, 8, couple of houses, couple of renos. So I actually enjoy that. I really do. It can be more stressful than coaching at times, but yeah, it's good.
Unreliable tradies.
Correct.
Ooh,
hard.
That's an uncontrollable.
Yeah.
Did that start when you with the Super League War money? You put it into bricks and mortar.
Yes.
Yeah. Good on you.
Yes, definitely did.
Well done. Can I mention about the driveway that you've got?
You can, mate.
Can I?
Yeah.
So, coach is kind enough to show me his house, and he's got a a revolving? No, is it a revolving driveway?
You're telling the story, mate. I'm just
Well,
listening.
I need the correct words. You're the.
It's a turntable.
A turntable for his car because he's got a big fancy car and he's no good at parking. He's a bit of a ditherer. Doesn't trust the beeper or the sensors light, so he gets the turntable to do it for him.
Drive in, spin around, drive out, mate.
Oh my god, mate! You make me sick.
You like that?
It's
a selling point if I want to sell it.
It's like something out of like you expect to see on Cribs or the old Cribs. I don't know. Did you ever watch that show where they go through like famous people's houses?
Yes.
In America.
Well, I got it actually from England, to be honest. The idea.
Always thinking those English. Always thinking.
Well, not on your driveway in England.
But mate, I didn't have a driveway. I'm just a scrubber.
Oh yeah,
we didn't have a driveway. What?
I met your parents. Just remember that. Be careful.
Yeah. Oh God. Yeah. Mate, there'd be no room, no garage. I've never had a garage before.
Oh my goodness! Listen to this man crying poor here.
I'm just saying.
I see your house too. It's not too bad.
I've done okay.
But mate,
where I grew up.
On, mate.
Where I grew up.
Change the subject because you're going to lose the next argument. Okay?
Where I grew up.
Mate, I grew up in commission.
A turntable. A turntable driveway. Mate, you get laughed out of town.
Yeah. I'm sure it was your driveway.
All right. A sliding doors moment that you think about where or think about the alternative happening. So, one for me may be what would life have been like if it had stayed in England? So is there a sliding doors moment that you think about?
Yeah, I think the 2014, the coaching position, really. I think that's, I touched on it before, but that's something that I really didn't see happening. And then the moment come and I wasn't there, and I rang up Pricey, and he was the one that really was the catalyst to go, mate, you need to do it. You need to finish what we started, sort of thing. Because I thought at the time it was pretty harsh, to be honest, with his being terminated midway through the year. And I was away, and then I got the call, and so I called him. I think that was a real sliding door moment for me for the next 7 or 8 years. Obviously, the rugby league one when I started. You have a few throughout that really changed the way you do things. There was a couple in properties as well that I've done. So I think, but the newest one was obviously the coaching one in 14. That was a real sliding door, whether to walk away or actually coach.
Yeah. That's it. It's interesting. Speaking of interesting, last one. Who's the most interesting person you've met?
Oh, my dad. I suppose when I look at interesting people, I look at people that can teach you things. And he's taught me, he's not with us now, but he taught me a lot of life lessons. And he always sort of said have an out, how to get out of things or how to do things correctly. So he's probably that person. The most interesting people I've had in the room at one time, because you meet a lot of people as a coach or as a player that's been fortunate enough to play at the top level, was I went over to Spain, to Real Madrid for I suppose to learn a little bit of
Spanish.
Different sports. No, Spanish, didn't know Spanish. But so I sort of fact-finding tours that you go on and try and better yourself through an off-season. So I went over to Real Madrid in 2005, 2006 with some coaching staff, Browning, Dave Barnhill, Andrew Gray and Dousty. So we went to Real Madrid, and there was, in that team, it was like a unforgettable team, but talking in the same crowd in the round was Zidane, Ronaldo, Beckham and Michael Owen. So 4 of the elite.
Yeah, that was the Galacticos era, I think.
Yeah, 4 of the elite people, and conversation, like their cultures are so different, but they actually play this game together. And then just watching them train and watching them, talk and associate one another was very, very interesting. And Dave Beckham, drove us back to where we had to go back in the city, and he had in his car, and he was just holding conversation for a good half hour. It was really interesting to see how the life he lived in Spain, and had a bodyguard beside him with a gun, and couldn't go to too many places, and the freedom that we had, you could see that he'd like a little bit of that, but didn't have it because of who he was. So that was a really interesting couple of days over there.
Yeah, but it was. Hey, just touching back on your dad as well. I think I spoke to you at the top of this interview about like the pressures that are involved in coaching. I think it's worth noting as well during those difficult times, especially during COVID. Your father was really struggling, wasn't he? And I think that's some of the human side of it. When the pressure comes onto the coaching with people as well, and you were going through a lot there. I don't think enough people understand that, and obviously we were all there with you, and we got it. But the inability to see your dad, and then you've got the inability to see your dad because of the
COVID,
stupid COVID rules that were in place at the time.
Yeah,
and then the pressure of coaching.
Yeah, I lost mum in 17, so and obviously that was big at the time, and Dad was going okay, and then Dad in 19 started to really lose his way a little bit and got dementia. So that was pretty tough. So then he got put into homes, and during the COVID he got moved around a bit because they weren't handling him. So I wasn't able to break the role. Once I was able to go out and see him, but pretty well for a period of time that I couldn't see him. So it was all left up to my sister and family to basically look after him. And
is that because we were in the bubble?
Yeah, we're in the bubble, yeah. So that was really tough. So the decision when it come to leaving the Dragons was, made around a career, but it was also an opportunity to go and see Dad, which at the time he needed me to be there. So that next 12 months was really good because he passed away, obviously, but it was a great time that I could spend unlimited time with him because I had the freedom of not actually having to do anything else. So there was a bit of a blessing in that.
Silver lining in it. And
definitely.
Get out of the bubble and do what is. I know football is incredibly important to you, but I can only imagine you treasure those
absolutely
those final few those months with your old man. Very special, and I think, like I say, very important that people realise that there's an actual person just like them, with fathers, mothers, aunts, uncles, friends as well that are all part of the journey.
Yeah,
and it's important to know. I guess the final question. He gets brought up a lot in this podcast, Jeremy Latimore. Any Jeremy stories you care to share?
Well, there's one in North Queensland, but he says that you're highly involved in it, so maybe we should not share this.
Well, it's funny actually because he shared the North Queensland Townsville story. We've had Cameron McInnes's interpretation. Have you got your memories from that day?
I think Lats took a huge bullet for someone else.
Oh, see, this is not you talking. I know who's talking because we were at that the men's mental health lunch last Wednesday, and he was into you about saying this. So I'm gonna.
Well,
what last
was he right or wrong? I'll ask you the question.
Was he right or was he wrong?
Did he cover up someone?
No, he didn't cover up anybody.
Okay.
He's a grown man.
Okay.
Who Cameron McInnes said he found him and Ewan Aitken in the room.
All right. Was there someone else, the third party?
I'd already been in there. I'd left.
Okay. Before or after you spilled the...
I'd contributed to some of the mess.
Right.
But
well, no, you don't have to say any more. It's done. No.
Right.
But he got in a lot of trouble for it, by the way. He nearly got his contract.
Did he? There's no way I would have let that happen. Let him get in a little bit of trouble.
No, but he actually, you know what? Lats brought a lot to our group.
He did.
He brought a lot to our group. He was part of that really winning environment that we created in 18. He's happy. He always holds himself accountable.
We're going to have to edit this
He's
out.
respectful.
We're going to have to edit all
and
this
he's dedicated for a bloke with not much ability.
That could be a great thing. So we'll just beep out the words. He's this.
And he wants to fight now, eh? Is that true?
Yes, against the old that old team. For us, I thought we all got on really well together. Lomax and Frizzell going at it in a
young bull against an old bull. You never disrespect an old bull.
No, that was poor form from Lomax. And then off the back of that, Latimore and Vaughan want to get it on. Who do you think could win? You know them both very well.
Depends how quick you have to move. Vaughan can move quicker than Lats, but I think Lats would play it straight.
So
I think Lats would.
So if you're
the Italian stallion against. Yeah, look,
the Port Macquarie Mauler.
I'm going to sit on the fence on this one.
Oh, don't be boring.
Seriously, I would.
Coach, be honest. Who's winning in a 3?
Well, who wants to fight?
Latimore wants it.
Okay, well, if he wants to fight, he'd probably win it because he wants it more than the other person at the minute. Depends how Vaughan. If he gets serious, let's go and watch it.
Who are you picking between Frizzell and Lomax?
No conversation there.
Oh, really?
Actually, Zach's fighting, you know that, don't you?
Is he?
Well, he wants to.
He wants to. But you reckon Frizz might?
Leave it to your imagination.
We will leave it there. But I'm reading between the lines. I know you think he'll win in both of those fights. So
okay.
All
so
right.
You know me better than most.
Yes. All right. Well, Coach, it's been fantastic to sit and talk with you. And great to get your perspective. I think our listeners will get a lot from that, and it's always a pleasure to be with you. You did get a little, and I appreciate you making the journey here to our
wow.
studios. You were going the wrong way on Moore Park Road. You were saying to me, I'm just gonna take I'll just hook a U-turn. We're not in the gong, mate. We're not in Dapto. There's like one-way systems in play. You were all over the shop.
Mate, your directions are one way out of here. Because seriously, like next time anyone gets on this show, make sure you get someone else to give you directions than this guy. He doesn't even got a parking spot. Hasn't even got a street.
We
And he
do
says
have a
we're somewhere near a pub. Like that, we're in Sydney.
What else do you need?
We're in Sydney.
And, mate, I sent you a screenshot of the map and highlighted where to go.
You must have sent it to someone else, mate.
I'm going to go through my phone records. Anyway, enough about our shenanigans, getting involved. I did shout the coffee, by the way, just so everybody knows.
And that's the first.
You can't. All right. Well, let's wrap it up
Still
there.
the tightest man around.
Not a chance. That is a false accusation, and our listeners know that, and anybody that knows me knows that. So, thanks for listening, Coach. It's been fantastic.
Gentlemen, always put a smile on your face, mate.
Oh, is that a click?
Yeah, fingers.